Welcome to the Caplander podcast, where we dive into the dynamic world of private capital markets. Whether you're new to private market investing or a seasoned professional, this podcast unpacks the latest trends, insights, and opportunities shaping the industry. Featuring expert guests and deep discussions, Caplander is your go-to resource for staying informed and inspired. Hello and welcome to the Caplander podcast. Today we are joined by Duncan Barrigan, who is the founder and CEO of Lunos AI. Hi, Duncan.
Hello. By the way, it's Barrigan. We probably may as well.
There we go. Good. We were missing our British.
You may as well get it right in the beginning.
You know what? I have we had a podcast guest, and at the end of it, he says to me, "Okay, goodbye, Megan. Nice to see you." And the whole time.
And he's been doing this this was one of our board members. By the way, Duncan, we go through this all the time because Morgan said the intonations with words is always actually a fun.
Yeah. Most people get it wrong, to be honest, when they see it written down.
what?
I thought we are in the first 10 seconds. Let's just...
Yeah, we're starting
tomato.
Yeah. No, Jody, the amount of times that Jody corrects me on, it's really the A's and then some of the O's is where
Scarcity, sparsity, Haley.
I have a weird name. No one's ever heard Barrigan before, so they never quite know what to make of it.
It does sound better when you say it than when I would say it. And I think it really is the accent. With that being said, tell us who you are, where you're from. Tell us the basics.
Yeah, so I am Duncan. I'm founder of Lunos. Most people can probably tell from my accent that I am, in fact, from England. So I spent most of my career over there, but moved over to the US, and now I live over on the East Coast, and have spent most of the last 10 years working on ways to help businesses get paid. So spent 7.5, 8 years at GoCardless, a FinTech unicorn over in Europe, where I was chief product officer. And now here I am with Lunos, the AI accounts receivable worker.
So tell us what this means. I mean, obviously we know what a FinTech company is, and you say it so quickly because it's very easy nomenclature for you. But break down a little bit when you say a FinTech company and how people get paid. So this is a business to business or a business to consumer?
Business to business, yeah. I think most people in their time as consumers see such slick payment experiences and they assume that that's what happens when businesses pay businesses. But the reality is an insane mess of invoices and emails and spreadsheets. So yeah, what we do is help businesses to get paid by other businesses. And
you came up with this from your experience. And when you talk about a British unicorn, that must have been fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty wild journey. I think you mentioned the word fintech, financial technology. 10 years ago in London, people didn't know what that meant at all, and it kind of wasn't really a thing. People thought you just never heard of it. Whereas now, at least in the London tech scene, people know that fintech is financial.
We really don't hear the word unicorn too much anymore. We wish we did, but that's fewer and far between right now.
Yeah, definitely. But no, it was a fantastic journey. Look, I joined the company when it was about 30 people, and doing about $1 million in revenue. And then I was there for 7.5 years, and we grew it to it got nearly 1,000 at one point. A couple of $1 billion companies. It's a very special journey to go through, I think, for everyone.
Actually, I have a question on that. Being the compensation people that we are, right? We work with early stage companies who are trying to put in their infrastructure. So when it came to your conversation around cash and equity, being one of the chiefs and the early employees, how did you know? Did you figure out over time, or what was that journey like for you, knowing around the mix between cash and equity?
Yeah, I think it's always a challenge, honestly. I mean, back then, actually, it's remarkable what's happened to salaries in early stage tech, especially in London in particular. I think in the US, they've always been a bit more advanced, but pretty low cash when people, back in 20, when I joined GoCardless.
Right. It was that classic startup where you took low cash and higher equity.
Exactly. And then, I think the market started moving pretty quickly, to be honest, and we started having to figure out how we can make our cash packages compelling. And now, fast forward to Lunos now, we've got people in both the US and the UK, and, on both sides of the Atlantic, to get top talent to work on an AI business like ours. It costs infinitely more than it did in the early days of GoCardless back in 2015. So it's really changed significantly.
Well, the talent market is so much more global now. I mean, we do a lot of work in the UK and Europe, and Jody and I actually, this is, I think, our first full work day in our respective home offices since we were gone on the road. And it's
No, we
really you
talked to
do.
Duncan when we were actually randomly all in London last week.
Right, exactly. But it's really interesting because we see essentially we see a difference on the staff level compensation for junior people, but we don't see really much of a difference at the executive level.
Between the UK and US.
Yeah, globally, in general, talent is talent, and the top people are getting paid, and there doesn't seem to be as much of that imbalance that maybe you had at your former company where the cash was lower in the beginning and the equity higher. I mean, there is some sense of that just out of sheer survival, but it is because the rounds are taking longer, but they're bigger, is coming into, yeah, it's starting to get into balance faster because you know that if you're going to raise a round, it can't be 5 to 10 million. These we just talked to someone today and their series A was $40 million. So you're shaking your head yes on that. Fill us in what's
Yeah,
going on with you. Yeah.
I know. I mean, yeah, I think these days, that, as you say, the round has to be a big part of it because previously, I think we had engineers on, £60,000 and numbers like that in 2015 in London. That's not a way that anyone's hiring any engineers around around the West at this point for a startup. And yeah, I think, as you say, like as the rounds have escalated and the sort of the war for talents come on, it's been the differences between the UK and the US in, say, engineering salaries have just really shrunk versus when we were shocked
Right.
when we first went to the US. We expanded the business to the US and we saw the numbers. We were kind of amazed at what they were at the
Yeah.
time,
Right.
but it's not the case
I
anymore.
have I have a question for you. So you were at GoCardless, you were one of the first 30, 50 employees, and then you were there while they grew and expanded. And then at what point did you think that you wanted to start your own company? Like when did the light bulb go off for you?
Yeah, I actually started with with the light bulb before I even began at GoCardless, and I always say that it was a testament to the journey we were on as a company that I ended up staying as long as I did. I remember saying to Hiroki, the founder CEO, that I wanted to build something for myself and from the ground up, but amazing place. I'd loved everyone I met and thought this would be an amazing place to learn. And then just one of those journeys that draws you in. So it
Right.
took me a while to get to the point where I actually
What
said, "Let's go, let's do this."
what did you learn that it made a significant difference when you started your own company?
I mean, I think anyone who has been through a founding journey knows quite how many mistakes there are to make, and the more of them that you've made in a different circumstance, kind of the fewer of them you can make in this one. So, I mean, some that stand out for me for sure. I learned the importance of being really obsessed with solving customers' problems and actually trying to unpick them and understand the problem rather than leaping to solutions. And also focus, I think, was another big one that
Right.
it's very easy to say and much harder to do, but it just makes such a difference if you can genuinely remain focused on what's important and do
Right.
almost as few things as you can.
I think product is such an interesting role for a tech company in general because it really is the core of what you do. And especially client feedback is so important. I mean, we have a platform, right? And pretty much every single change we have made on the platform or the product has come from the clients or survey participants. And I
From,
think
like,
it's
day
such.
1, the whole thing started with the client need, so and then we've adjusted as quickly as we could based on clients.
Right. But it's really, I think it's kind of what you're talking about, and I'm sure you're having this with Lunos as you're getting going too, is getting feedback because what you think it is in your mind and then having somebody use it in real time are they can be two very different experiences.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I think especially with AI workers, right? So, we're an AI worker for receivables, and the work that humans are doing with that is a lot of very sort of chaotic, unstructured back and forth with people. And we did the very first version where we'd thought about it, we'd spoken to a bunch of other experts and like mapped it out.
Right.
And then the very first email that came in from a real person kind of made everything blow up because they'd done 6 different things at once. It's just like the chaos of the real world is something that's hard for an AI worker to
Can't
cope
plan,
with.
right.
Right. We've seen this. We used to have we used to just any change that we would make on our platform, we just used to build it straight to the platform. There was no like staging situation or kind of something where behind the door we could test it. And it took one time when we released a whole slew of platform upgrades, and it was on like a Monday, it was on a Sunday night, and everything went wrong. Like every little possible thing, things were had I mean, the list goes on, but it really is, you learn those lessons along the way, which I think leads to the next question, which is where is Lunos now? I think you've raised capital by the time this episode has come out. So obviously being at a company and being in the C-suite, seeing how you've had, I'm assuming, right, that the unicorn had revenue. You said that they had $1 million at one point, right? So how are you approaching the fundraising for your company, and kind of how are things going on that side?
Yeah, so as you say, we will, when you're watching this, have announced our $5 million pre-seed from General Catalyst and Cherry Ventures as leads. So we're using that to build out the team and build towards our vision of agent to agent B2B trade. I think the world on this has changed a lot. We were talking about how you need the money to pay the salaries to some degree. But I also think that the way you build companies has changed. We raised a total.
So I want to understand that. You mean in terms of the technology or what goes first?
Both, actually. So I think that 2 big changes. One is that I think the sizes of teams will change. I mean, you're seeing this already with some of the people that are doing an incredible job building, multi-billion-dollar companies with, less than 100 people, which was just not something that seemed possible before. And I think some of that also comes from the velocity. We were talking about the customer request and impact, right? At Lunos, we love shipping things the same day someone's asked for it. If we see it's a great idea and it's really easy to do,
Hey,
like,
we
amazing.
love that hustle. That's like our number one word. Hustle and grit. Let's roll. We don't wait. Everyone always says, "Oh, we quit," especially when they call with a compensation question, and they say, "We're sorry that this is so urgent." And we know this. I've known this for 30
Right.
years. When by the time someone calls us, the pressure is so much that they are ready. They were ready, weeks ago.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Part
I
of it,
think it's really exciting.
lean team allows you to be nimble and flexible, right? I mean, that sounds like part of it for you, and part of what you're priding yourself on is that the capital is going to let you really go after the right talent to get you to where you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is fewer better people. If I'm honest, is I think what the playbook has to be, right? I mean, to be that fast moving and that responsive, and also to craft these sorts of products that just require a lot more taste and a lot more nuance to them, like the unpredictability the unpredictability of AI in good ways and bad. I think you need like a smaller, better team. And
You
Right.
the
are
days
speaking my language
raising
because
this stuff.
you got to keep the circle tight, and you need people who can do multiple things and who are not complaining or whining, or the people who are hungry and innovative and excited and ready to go.
I have a question actually on this. So, when you're hiring people, first of all, are you involved in any of the hiring? Like, are you interviewing people as they're coming in?
Yeah, I mean, at this scale, I always think this is a really interesting question to ask. It's like, at what point should the
Yeah,
founder
do you
CEO
move
stop
you get
interviewing
become more
people?
strategic and let go of that because you're not gonna we heard this from one of the VCs that we talked to, Jenny Felding from Everywhere Ventures, and she said that she learned with one of her early companies that she could not be involved with everything, and that was her biggest lesson.
Yeah, and so I think it makes it really interesting. I mean, at our scale, absolutely, I am. I'm still interviewing everyone. I think the really interesting question is, we're about 7 people. How far does that go? And honestly, actually, I think it should go to. I think I should be doing it at 50 people, to be honest. Not like at the end of the funnel, not the beginning, right? Because other people should have done the filtering. But I still think that hiring people is one of the highest leverage things you can do, and you should let go of other stuff before you stop actually like having some involvement
Right.
in who joins the company.
Okay. And then first of all, I agree with you because I think that, obviously Jody's also my mother. So a lot of
But
things
I've
have
moved
now,
away, even with the size
right,
of our team, I have moved away from a lot of the day-to-day work and being much more outward facing and strategic because A, that's my strength, and when I'm more tactical, I tend to make mistakes anyhow, and Morgan, obviously being raised with the business and knowing this from the time she could even understand anything, I have a lot of confidence in her ability and our team.
right. Well, then my next question for you is like when you're going and you're looking to hire people, I mean, there have been articles left and right about how AI companies and executives are looking for people who really don't prioritize a work-life balance, who are willing
About
to
work.
eat, sleep, and breathe what they're doing. Do you
Yeah.
agree with that? Do you not agree with that?
'Cause you have a family and a life and that's what part of the reason you were in the UK, you told us your wife was actually at the very event that we were speaking at. How do you balance it?
I should correct that to my girlfriend before I get in
Your
trouble, but
girlfriend,
yes.
sorry. Uh-oh.
Yeah, let's move swiftly on.
Tomato, tomato, that's how we started out. Wife, girlfriend, partner.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it is there is a nuanced answer in the middle here. Like I don't believe that you can build amazing companies by working a 9 to 5. But I've also, at various points in my career, I've worked hours, especially I was a consultant before I was in tech, advising private equity firms, and we worked hours that just didn't make any sense. Like literally we would have been more effective working fewer hours because you're trying to solve something at 2 a.m. and then when you wake up at 7, it's actually really obvious to you. And like
You're not
what
thinking sharply.
um so yeah, I think that it's about finding the right balance and the right balance for the sort of the longer game that is the building a company. So yeah, I suppose I say not 996, but not 9 to 5. I think that people value flexibility and that people should want to work hard. You shouldn't tell them to work hard. They should want to solve the problem they're solving because they think it's interesting and they love working with their teammates.
And
So
also to lean
I
in
think it
when
should
they
be
have.
voluntary.
Yeah, they lean in when they have to, and then they know when they can take a little more flexibility. I mean,
Yeah.
we totally understand. So, how are you finding now the move to New York? What's going on there in terms of the tech industry and FinTech? Are you finding it to be amongst peers and colleagues it's inspiring, or how is it for you?
Yeah, I think the US it is a bigger pond, right? The UK tech scene has come on leaps and bounds, and it's been amazing to be part of that myself and to see its progression. But you really do see the difference. I mean, I remember not long after I moved to New York, someone sent around an email to a group asking like, how do you think I should, get in front of decision makers like founders and tech leaders for a voice AI product, like a developer voice AI product? I was like, I mean, I cycled past one on the way to the office this morning because in New York, these people are like, it's
There.
such a density, it's
Right.
just on a billboard, right? In London,
Yeah.
it's not quite there yet. You don't see billboards for B2B developer tools for AI voice. So I think it makes you realize it, like even the advertising shows you how big the scene is in the US, and it is an amazing ecosystem.
I used to see that in San Francisco. I grew up in the Bay Area, but I spent a couple of years after college there when our offices were headquartered there. And every single month, when they would change the advertisements in the public transportation stations, it gave you a really good feeling or a sense of what was going on in the city because you could see it reflected where you were walking to your office. And I
Right.
think there is something to be said. I mean, there's a lot of conversations about people. As your team, I mean, you're on it all together now, we know, but is your team normally spread out between an office in the UK and then an office in New York, or how are you approaching remote work, if at all?
Yeah, we are split across the Atlantic, so UK
Right.
and East Coast, which for me was mostly predicated on the fact that there were some amazing people that I wanted to work with from my GoCardless days in the UK. But equally, the US was the place to build the business and is definitely the best market for the AI accounts receivable worker, right? The chaos in the US is even bigger with most of the payments still made by checks. And it's a wild west out there. So we did it on both sides of the Atlantic. And I think it's something that gives you a bit of a little bit of a different character. We struggled with the satellite offices feeling like satellites at
Right.
GoCardless. We did that, and I think that's something that when you start spread across a couple of places, you take some other challenges, but
Right.
you
Because you
feel a
wanna
bit
make
more
sure that
secure in
there's
that.
some kind of connection, but it's harder when the offices are small. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I believe it's going to be a big asset as we grow. That we're sort of, we've got these two centers.
Totally.
But I think it ties really well. Actually, I think it would be more of a struggle if it wasn't for what we were saying about it being better to have a smaller, higher quality team at this point
I will
because
tell
we're
you that
happy
there
with that.
is a certain cachet about having been we've been in the UK a lot lately because there's quite a bit of going on in innovation with tech and tech bio and just biotech, and I think that even though the innovation and the number one location is still the United States of America, that the entryway for Europe and the UK being in London is also, I think, a great advantage to you, and you'll probably be able to leverage the talent in ways that might be trickier to find in the US and for the money, no question. So we know you've got, and by the time this is released, you've got an exciting launch. Anything else you can tell us about that launch?
I hear you might have something on the run. Somebody holding on the
Yeah.
run.
So one of the things that came out for us when you talk to people, as I said, it's this kind of hidden world for those who haven't experienced it. But when you talk to people who are involved in actually getting your invoices paid as a business, the sentiment that comes across is of the Wild West, right? There's just this sort of carnage out there that you can never tame. I mean, think of yourselves. Every time you get a new customer, your poor receivables people, their problem gets bigger. You're happy about it, but they're like, oh wow, there's more people to chase. There's more work to do. So we came up on the idea of, and very much our tagline is "Tame the wilds of receivables," and we've been leaning into that and
Can you
leaning
say
into the
this again?
feeling of
Tame the wild receivables?
taming the wilds of receivables.
Got it. The what?
So it's the Wild West out there, and therefore Lunos is in. I think in the words of one of our customers said, look, they finished their to do list. Lunos gives you a to do list, and that's all you have to do to make sure you're getting paid. And she said, oh, I made it to the Texan, which is the little image of the cowboy you get when you clear your to do list. And she described it to me that way. So
Very
yeah,
fun.
and then as you alluded to. Uh, we're happy to be different, and we think that what we're doing is very different. We're happy for people to see us as different. So yeah, by the time you see this, there will have been a horse with a cowboy on it by the Wall Street Bull.
Love
Will you
that.
be
Well,
will you be dressed in full Western attire with the
uh, That is a good question. I will have my Lunos cowboy hat on. I'm not sure whether anyone. You'd have to ask Alex, my head of growth, whether he's managed to find me, a full
our
cowboy
printer.
outfit. But I
Well,
will.
if you
I've
get
got
back
my
to
hat.
London, I'll put in a plug. We just were at a store called Jesse Western, and I bought this great fringe jacket, and they had some amazing stuff. So if you have a chance to go over towards, what is it, the Portobello Market, Morgan?
exactly.
Yeah, well, we're big fans of that. I think it's great. Maybe Beyonce could come and sing something from her Texas Hold'em album for you. True American style of a success story. Well, we're really, really excited for you. I love the creativity to have the cowboy and the horse. I mean, how innovative is that? And you sound like you've had a really good ride with this as well. So we're looking forward to seeing what's more to come.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely. Well, Duncan, thank you for joining us and appreciate you taking the time.
Not at all. Thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun.